Welcome to Ask the Expert, a daily series from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. You can ask me any questions in the comments or hashtag QBATE on Twitter. If you need any more advice, then join the official Intuit Quickbooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. During the live session, we'll also be running a poll, so please do engage with it, and in the end, I'll share the results with you. So good morning, everyone. My name is Dino Myers-Lamptey, and I'm the founder of The Barbershop. The Barbershop is a strategy-led creative company that aims to solve the biggest business problems through data, distribution, and disruptive ideas. We collaborate with the very best experts and specialists to provide unique solutions and innovative solutions for businesses, executing exceptionally and at speed with a leaner team. We offer both agency and consultancy services across media, creative, and technology, serviced by senior strategic minds who know how to think as well as do. We think globally, harnessing the power of distributed talent and provide always-on thinking, executing, and servicing. We work with brands that are driven by purpose or seeking purpose, and those that enrich culture through the pleasure that they bring. These brands have included brands like Parkinson's UK, Karma Drinks, Doro Mobile, Pearl & Dean, and Triumph Lingerie. But while we've worked with many large international brands, we've also worked with disruptive, fast growth brands that need to grow and have much smaller media budgets. Brands like Poco Gelato, a supernatural vegan ice cream. For all these brands, though, we like to focus the minds and attention on three key areas. That is data, distribution, and disruptive ideas. First up, data. Well, data can mean many things in marketing, but the way we like to think about data is in three key areas. Firstly, have measurable objectives and marketing KPIs. Make sure that you have these clearly set out so you can deliver against these results. Too often, objectives can be too lofty or too vague or too soft, but everything can be measurable, everything can be laid out, and you can think about that in a very kind of like strategic way. Secondly, understand your audiences. There's a lot of data you can use to better understand who your audiences are, so you can pick the low-hanging fruit first, and then make sure that you reach out beyond that and reach out to the customers that you don't currently see. Often brands can be too obsessed by their existing customers, which is necessary, but in order to grow, you should always strive to reach those that you don't currently get at present. As a tip, it's important to get data that can help you understand why some people buy you and why others don't. And use the reasons that are unique to find out those others that you can reach out to that also buy into those same unique reasons. The second D is distribution. So once you know who buys you and who doesn't, it's important to know why they don't and why they do. And it's important to also understand what media can reach them, which is the next important step. Distribution is about your media choices, and there are some basic principles to have in mind. Firstly, you should think of your media in terms of how many people you are reaching and how often you need to reach them. Depending on how new you are, or how hard your message is to explain, or even how frequently you are bought, you will need to vary the amount of times that you remind someone about what you offer. This is the frequency. Once you know that, then you should aim to maximize the reach to your desired audience. The second key point about distribution is multimedia works, if you can afford it. If you have the luxury of budget, you will find that media has an amplification effect on each other. This is in part due to the multi-sensory effects when combining visual with audio and timely contextual effects that media can have that can help messages land and motivate action. Brands often ask whether TV or radio will work for them. And the short answer is, well, yes, if you can afford it though. And the supply and demand thing is also often the issue. Often brands can't handle the demand that big broadcast channels often generates. So, more often than not, if advertising is done correctly, it can be a greater force than you can expect. So use it wisely. Lastly, about distribution is, how do you advertise and communicate the kind of brand you are? Often a new brand, it's one of your biggest barriers is getting people to trust you. Media can send messages, and it can send an intent about who you are, what you stand to do, and what kind of business you are. Different media send signals out to your customers and your audiences. So use media wisely in that sense. Finally, there's disruptive ideas. So disruptive ideas are the most important thing in marketing. The most important thing is to be remembered and to be distinctive by having a clear role as to who you are and when you are used. Too often, brands enter the worlds of communications and their customers don't have a clear reason as to why they should choose them over the multiple amounts of competitors out there in the market. So we live in a world of endless choice. There's always an alternative, but rarely can brands see the world exactly as you do. So it's all about how you can match your brand and your values with consumers' values. Disruptive ideas are about grabbing attention and creating a memorable difference. To think about this, we use a framework. This framework begins with purpose. Think about purpose as a disruptive idea. What problem in the world have you created your business to solve? And what is the most passionate expression of that purpose that you can give your audience? Let your passion shine through and really drive it through in your marketing communications. Secondly, think about media if you had a budget of 0. And what would you do then? It's often a refreshing way to approach a problem, to think about a 0 media budget, because often it gets you to think about how your ideas can be very PRable by their nature, but also how you can use your own media channels to greatest effect. So really, before you start to think about how to spend your money, think about how to create without any money. Finally, look to reposition the category that you were in. Reframe it, turn it upside down. Tell people why the norms of the category are outdated, and tell them why your perspective is a better one. So, I think that brings us all nicely on to questions. Let's have a look what we've got here. So we've got a question from Kim, from direct messaging from Twitter. What have you learned from running your own company? Anything you wish you knew from the beginning? Well, my company's been going for 18 months, and that 18 months seems to have been consumed by the disruption that's been caused in the last 6 to 9 months because of COVID. Before then, all the usual things really applied. Business was complicated. There were lots of decisions to be made. But what I did learn actually was business now is far, far easier than it ever was before because of the technology and the tools that are available to you. Things that were complicated to do before, that needed massive teams, that needed big offices, you simply just don't need those things anymore. Business can get started in an instance, and you can be up and running and be in touch with the very best experts from around the world. So this is great for starting a new business, but it's also daunting from the fact that people can compete with your business in an instance. And this is the real threat of disruption. Whatever your idea is, whatever your thing is, it's instantly imitatable. So you've got to be fast, you've got to be dynamic, but you've got to have a strategy in mind and have a strong purpose at the heart of what you're doing. Next question, we've got a question from Simran from Facebook Messenger. To get people to experience my brand firsthand, I have used stalls at different fairs. I'm not sure when I will be able to do that again. Do you have any tips on how I can get people to experience the brand in the current landscape? I have an online store selling Italian delicates, food and wine. That is an incredibly tricky problem to solve. Right now, COVID has completely disrupted everything. We have clients that work in a catering business, and so I know this from a personal experience. They served at big events, big weddings, big hotels, and they were massively impacted by the events. Everything was wiped out, and I'm sure you've experienced a very similar thing So it's a tricky situation. What most businesses have done or tried to do is pivot their business into the digital world. The downside of COVID is the catastrophic pandemic effects that have happened, the job losses. But actually, on the upside, it's accelerated this digital transformation. We would have conversations with clients about getting their website, getting their mobile product in order, sorting out distribution of product. And actually, those were good and necessary conversations, but they had time to do them in a world pre-COVID. Now you simply do not have time to wait around. And actually, what we found is that whole kind of like progression that would have taken 5 years really happened over the case of a few months with businesses. So a lot of businesses moving their websites from, maybe even things like, just standard websites that were just giving information like WordPress to actually Shopify and making them shoppable and looking at delivery options and taking credit payments and remotely taking payments as well. So it's really important, I think, to think about the technological side of your business and how much you can do and operate remotely in that sense. Because we just simply don't know when things are going to change that soon. But you can do the best of both. There's some incredible businesses that have been formed recently that have made things like delivery of fresh produce and goods really incredible. One of those great companies is a company called Pinga that we've advised, who are a little bit of a mix between Deliveroo and Amazon, where they're delivering local products to local people very easily and effortlessly, all in under 90 minutes and an affordable price. So we've got another question from Ariana from the Instagram DM. Do you think that diversity is an issue in marketing agency land? What a great question, Ariana. Well, let me say it this way. Creativity is all about diversity. Anyone that's a creative person knows that you become more creative and get better ideas by increasing the stimulus that you have at your disposal. But you can never get enough. You can never be to enough places. You can never know enough people. You can never have enough situations to put yourself into the mind of the consumer. We're living in a global world now where the consumer, could be your neighbor or they could be 1,000 miles away in a different country. And it's important for us to realize that this new global world is our dynamic. We've got to understand people better than ever before. And that is the essence of a marketing person's job, is to understand people, what makes them tick, what motivates them, what makes them say yes, no, decide to buy something today or tomorrow. And it takes diversity to answer those questions and understand those people. But it also takes diversity to have truly creative and disruptive thinking. Often in marketing, as the point was made about disruption, you're not trying to conform. You're not trying to do what the market's doing. You're not trying to do what the leader's doing. You're trying to do something that's distinctive and different, something that surprises people, that gets them to stop, grabs their attention, but plants a seed in the mind that stays there, that can be awoken at any point with a mind of a message or a conversation. Diversity is essential in marketing. It's the essence of creativity. I talk about diversity and the marketing industry a bit like what the music industry was before 1959, which was when Motown arrived to the scene. We simply don't know the possibilities of what diversity could achieve in marketing because we haven't really had it yet, and we need to get there. We've got another question from Jules from Facebook Messenger. Hi, how does one develop disruptive ideas? Do you have a set of best practices that my team and I can begin with? That's another great question. I think the first thing to remember is that ideas can come from anywhere. They don't live up on big mountains. They don't live up in on the hills or in just in the creative department in big agencies. Ideas come from everywhere. You've just got to be better at being able to observe them, allow them to flourish, and allow your team to be expressive and give them that permission to express their ideas and thoughts. And often it takes going off on tangents, going down rabbit holes and warrens, and coming out at the end of it with things that don't necessarily look that good. But sleep on it, wait, bounce the ideas of others, and you will find that those things will suddenly form into something much more remarkable. But often, ideas are those things that, for a very long time, they do not seem unique, different, or remarkable. But then somewhere down the line, as you've dealt with the problem in your mind, the subconscious pulls out something that is truly unique and different. And that's where the idea is born. So in terms of a simple technique, I would say the first thing that's important is to understand the problem first and foremost. Really get into the underneath the problem to really understand all the data, the reasons for different things, the problem you're trying to solve. Fill your mind with information. Consume, consume, consume before you start to think of the ideas and the solutions. And you will find yourself thinking of things and note them down. They might be relevant. Your instinct might be bang on, but the chances are that your instinct isn't led from the insight that is really necessary to solve the problem. So you need to live with that problem for a while. You need to speak to people, speak to customers, speak to friends, relatives, watch people use the product, or watch them navigate themselves in the market. And then keep thinking about it, but it's important to have a break from it. Never give yourself too much pressure to come up with a great idea. Give yourself time, space, go away, play, go do some gaming, talk to your kids, have fun. And then you will find that when you then come back to the problem, it will hopefully crystallize what were the good ideas and what were the bad ideas. I talk about ideas, about divergent ideas and convergent ideas. Your first stage of generating disruptive ideas should be everything is good, everything counts, nothing is bad. Go wide, go far, go weird. And then after a little while, you've got to have that rational head back on you and start to think of, okay, what is feasible, what is affordable, and what can we do tomorrow and now, and what's going to achieve the objective. And then you narrow down to the perfect disruptive idea. Great. We've got another question from Tilly from Instagram through DM. So we're a B2B business and we're going to start using paid social. Do you think that LinkedIn is the best platform? That's a great question, Tilly, but it really depends what your business is. B2B can be, mean all sorts of different things, really. So, I think there are some environments and some areas that are very specialized that actually you might find that your B2B business works much better. When we think about in terms of paid social platforms, without a doubt, Facebook's been an incredible platform for businesses, as has Instagram. And, by the nature of what those platforms are, that you fit in quite well. If you're a very visual product, a lot of fashion design, lifestyle products work very well in places like Instagram. And then LinkedIn is a very kind of business-led community. So yes, your customers are probably on there. And if your customers are on there, then it's a great reason to actually go on there as well. But I wouldn't discount some of the new emerging channels either. I mean, Pinterest is a great platform, depending on what you're selling, in terms of a lot of businesses use that to source materials, particularly if you're in the architecture, design, fashion. And there's some emerging channels as well, whether it's, for younger audiences. So depending on who your customer is, whether it's TikTok, Snapchat, other kind of paid social channels, I wouldn't discount any. But I would say that LinkedIn is likely to be where your core customer base is going to be as a B2B business. But think very carefully about how you come across and what you do, and make sure that you're still using the elements and foundations of interest and disruptive kind of marketing to engage people, because it's a very kind of personal platform as well. So your approach needs to be slightly different. We've got a question here from iFan at Twitter through DM. As a newly started company with a limited budget, do you have any advice on how we should think around marketing? Thanks for the question. Well, I think it's really important to think about marketing and businesses in the life stage of the business. Often the biggest mistake that brands can make is to think that they are a big brand when they haven't got big brand budgets. The journey of brands, successful brands, is often really quite similar when you look at it. You start off by doing the things that you can afford. And often when you start off, that doesn't mean you can afford a lot. We spend a lot of our time talking to disruptive brands that don't have any marketing budget at all. And we quickly realize that. I mean, often they come to us saying, we've got some marketing budget, we want to do something. And often our advice leads to saying, hang on a minute, that money is almost too little just to throw into the ocean. You need to get your brand positioning right. You need to get your brand story right. You need to understand who your customers are. Turn those initial customers into loyal fans. They will be the ones that promote you. And word of mouth is the most powerful thing that you can possibly do. But think about making your product a viral product, a product that people naturally will spread the word about and talk about, make people incentivized to talk about your product. And that might be because you're a great ethical purpose-led brand and you found great ethical purpose-led consumers who feel they need to really spread the word to their friends and family who are also trying to live their life in a more conscious way. Or it could be that you've just got a really good promotion and there's an incentive that they just simply can't say no to. Brands like Spotify and Uber and Airbnb and even Google all was started off on this kind of like incentive-based scheme, incentive-based marketing, where actually, when you look at it, there was a really good reason for using their product, a really good rational reason, for using their product, but also for telling others and getting other people on board and signing them up to the service. So I would say, first of all, think about it back as that kind of zero-based media budgeting plan. But you've really got to still not neglect your brand positioning, your strategy, and your ideas. Your ideas and disruptive ideas can be the thing that really sets you apart. And you don't necessarily need a lot of money, but you need to be able to take a lot of risk in those ideas. Because while some may pay off, the chances are that every little mathematical calculation you do will tell you that those ideas will not necessarily pay off. But it is those ideas that will get you the PR, that will get you the momentum, that will raise the flag of who you are and what you stand for, and will get you those all-important fans that will then start to be the advocates of your business. Okay, so we've got a question from Edie from Instagram DM. Hi Edie. Since we all have been working from home, I feel that my team has lost our creativity. How have you and your team boosted creativity and brainstorming sessions via Zoom calls? That's a great question, Edie. And it's actually one that I thought about a lot way before COVID, actually, because in the formulation of my business, it was really important to me to allow people to have the flexibility to work from remote locations. We really wanted to tap into great minds from all around the world at whatever time of the day. So we could be sleeping while people were still working in our clients' businesses. And the point of, how do you seamlessly communicate, but also spark of creativity is a really important one, because there's nothing really like being together in the same room to bounce ideas off and to hear little conversations going on the sidelines. So what it really takes, actually, if you're doing it virtually, which we have done a lot, and actually we organize workshops and sessions, which have been really successful, but they take a lot of preparation, a lot more preparation from you in advance to know the kind of stimulus that you need to bring to the table. You need to know how to use breakout rooms really well to allow people to go off and have their own little, very small groups as well. So the groups have to be even smaller, maybe, 2 or 3 people in a breakout room, so everyone can be heard and everyone can get their point of view across. And you need to just really think about how you energize the room. The timing's really important, because everyone's sitting at their desk all day now. And that is one of the least creative things, in the world, where you haven't even gone out for a walk and you're required to come up with ideas. So you've got to think about how you can time it right, separate, create some space around either side of that, but also give people, pre-task as well, to get people to think about it before they're in front of that Zoom call, so they can come at it with ideas, but also they can let that subconscious mind be working away, which is, often in being in your home, you're distracted by everything around you. And there's nothing really like going off site and going somewhere completely different. But you've got to use, different techniques, surprising techniques, stimulus, and hopefully a lot of energy to make that Zoom call really work. So it's a tricky one, but it's something that we're all kind of like working with in this day and age. And I would like to say that actually, some of the Zoom-based sessions, for some reasons, some elements of them actually make these brainstorm sessions even better, actually. That kind of idea of kind of like, focus, but also the idea of being able to get more than, let's say, 6 or 8 people in a room sometimes, but still allow them to break away and then come back together again, can be quite a rapidly accelerated way of generating great ideas. So we've got another question from Marlene from Facebook Messenger. Hi, Dino. One thing that my company is struggling with is that we don't know that much about our audience, and therefore it's hard to understand how we should communicate. Do you have any tips on what we can do? Yes, Marlene. So, I mean, the answer, that you would give most big brands is to conduct, a great bit of research, using a reputable research company. But great bits of research. There's a lot of research out there that isn't necessarily that insightful and of value. You can do, both qualitative and quantitative research, whether it's asking questions or getting people in a room and asking their opinions, or just looking at facts and figures of how people, act and how they behave. I'm a big fan of passive research, which is the observation of people doing things and the data that comes out of it without you actually asking them the question. So I think that that is one really great source of information. And actually, when you look at it, there's a lot of free passive research tools out there that you can use initially before you start to pay money to work out, a little bit more about your market. Google Trends is a great example. So understanding what people search for is a great way to understand their intentions behind a product in the market. Really understanding in terms of what motivates them. Think of research in terms of how people behave, but also what are the motivations behind that behavior as well. Really, a conversation with the right people about research can probably get you to think about it in a much more different way. And then suddenly you put your lens on where you start to observe your customers and people that don't buy you in a different way that's much more insightful, that can allow you to use that information into your marketing. So I would say at first, don't necessarily spend big budgets, but have the conversations to understand the resources and tools that are out there, and to reframe your perspective on what you're looking out for and what is insightful and what isn't. So a quick question there from Ava May from Twitter DM. Hi, I'm setting up my own company and currently building a pitching deck. From a strategic point of view, what should I think about? I've never done this before. Wow, Ava May, big question. Please contact me afterwards when we have this, when we wrap up. There's lots I could probably say here, and it comes down to really what who you're selling to is the most important thing. Really think about your audience first and foremost. Who are they? Who's in the room? What are they trying to get out of it? A pitch deck that is to investors is very different from a pitch deck that is to whether it's a potential customer or a Tesco sales trader. So it's really important first and foremost to really understand the room. But what I would say first and foremost is most pitch decks are overloaded information and don't get into the heart of the most interesting part of the business in terms of why it's different. Really think hard and be brutal with yourself about why it's different. There's always competitors, and really position yourself clearly in the minds of the person that you're presenting to about why you're different and why it's necessary to have you in the world. I would think about once you've got that kind of core central idea, think about the storytelling of how you're telling that idea. Get there quickly, get there visually, and leave as much time as possible for questions from them for you to answer and to satisfy the niggling needs in their mind. Okay, unfortunately, we're running out a little bit of time. So Ava May's question was the last question. So I've got to reveal the poll results. So we asked you, have you prepared your business for the next 6 months? And the answer was 67% of you said yes, and 33% of you said no. That's great to know because there's often this real struggle between short-term and long-term in the whole marketing world. And actually, while everyone has to think about the short term, you need ideas and thoughts of the short term that really carry you through to the long term. Always think about how you're communicating them, what that would do for your brand, and make sure you're not eroding that brand equity over the long term. So, that brings us to the final few minutes, really. So it's time to really wrap up. Firstly, I'd like to say that, any questions, please get in touch with your Quickbooks support team on Facebook. Or if you want to get in contact with me, you can email me at dino@wearetbs.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to send me a direct message. There were a lot of great questions that I probably didn't answer fully that I would love to answer again. There's only one Dino Myers-Lamptey, so I'm pretty easy to find. So coming up on Ask the Expert tomorrow is Tommy and Rebecca, who are the founders of Bamboo Brush. Bamboo Brush is a purpose-driven company whose mission is to educate, inspire, and empower people across the world. With their hashtag 1 million by 2020 campaign, they've educated and inspired 1 million people to swap away from their normal plastic toothbrush to their environmentally friendly and sustainable bamboo brush. A reminder that if you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook, where accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. So, thank you all for tuning in today and this morning. It's been great answering your questions. Have a great day.